All eyes are on powerful Hurricane Ian as it heads towards western Cuba. Good evening, it's 11 o'clock here Eastern Time. I'm Mike Naso with the latest video update on Hurricane Ian, a very dangerous Category 2 hurricane. There it is, sitting south of the Isle of Youth in extreme western Cuba, moving on off towards the north-northwest. It will be crossing western Cuba over the next few hours, and it should strengthen into a major hurricane, a Category 3, either overnight or early tomorrow, and then Tuesday get even stronger as a Category 4 as it takes aim at western Florida. We have a lot of new statistics to go over, so here's the latest track as of 11 p.m. Eastern Time from the National Hurricane Center, hot off the presses, and Hurricane Ian is at 21.3 north, 83.4 west. Winds are up to 105. It's now a strong Category 2 hurricane, so it's just below major hurricane intensity, and it should go over that in the next few hours. Pressure 962 millibars is moving north-northwest at 13. So it's no longer moving west-northwest or northwest, but now north-northwest. It's really starting to feel the influence of that trough to the north, and I'll show you that in a second. I also wanted to mention that the track here brings it into the southeast Gulf, but the track has shifted to the east. And we've seen a lot of that during the last, say, 6 to 10 hours. Definite motion in the models towards the east, and I'll show you all that in just a second. I want to go over these watches and warnings because there's a lot of them, so forgive me here. We have hurricane warnings for western Cuba, including the Isle of Youth. Obviously, they're about to be slammed. We have a hurricane warning from Inglewood to the Anclote River, including Tampa Bay and the Dry Tortuga. So that's for the west coast of Florida. You guys are under a hurricane warning. We have a hurricane watch north of Anclote River to the Suwannee River, and then Bonita Beach to Inglewood. So you guys are under the watch. That'll likely be changed to a warning tomorrow. And then we have a tropical storm watch now, north of Suwannee River to Indian Pass and Jupiter Inlet to the Altamaha Sound, including Lake Okeechobee, on the other side of Florida. All of this is an indication that this wind field is going to be impacting the entire state. So don't think that this thing's just going to Tampa and it's going to leave you alone down here in Lake Okeechobee. You guys are in for it, okay? So we have a lot to cover with those watches and warnings. Here's the latest radar out of Key West, and again, this is the far long range, but look at that eye showing up there. That is a closed eye wall. The Air Force has been flying around out there. We even had the NOAA aircraft. NOAA has some nice Orion aircrafts. Kermit, Miss Piggy, Gonzo, they fly to try and see the pattern around the hurricane and to get some data, and earlier today they actually flew into Ian. Miss Piggy was flying into Ian, getting us some good information. But the aircraft recon's been out there showing that the system is intensifying. Here's another look at the Cuban radar. Looks a little bit medieval, but again, that shows a very well-defined eye there, headed right up towards the Isle of Youth. It looks like it's going to make landfall to the west of the Isle of Youth. And a lot of comparisons have been made to Hurricane Charlie 18 years ago. That made landfall east of the Isle of Youth. But again, we're splitting hairs. It's over a very low terrain of western Cuba, a lot of soft, mushy tobacco fields, whereas the high mountainous terrain is over in eastern Cuba near Guantanamo Bay. I did want to show here the satellite imagery, and I keep looking because this data is coming in very fast, and I want you guys to have the most recent data. Here's the satellite imagery, the infrared showing the, look at this convection here. See how it's wrapping around the darkest, deepest convection, closing off that eye? Very, very foreboding here. This is an indicator that our system is probably going to be a major hurricane, maybe by the time you see this update. These updates take sometimes 30 to 60 minutes to get online, and so I want you guys to have the most recent data, but in these fast-paced hurricane situations, it could already be a little outdated. There's another look at the water vapor imagery, and boy, I gotta tell you, this trough is our problem right here. Look at these models. These computer models have shifted east. This is the 18Z European. Now, we could see what happens in the next few hours with the 0Z, but the 18Z European model slams this hurricane into areas there much further east into southwest Florida, and that would be disastrous. That is a major hurricane coming ashore south of Tampa Bay. Earlier it was going right into Tampa Bay. Either way, this is a very serious threat to downtown Tampa, Florida, to say nothing of areas like Sarasota, Bradenton, Fort Myers, Charlotte Harbor down there where Charlie came in. You guys have to watch it very, very carefully as well because we're dealing with a lot of variables with this storm. Here's the European ensembles, and all of them now are into areas there between Tampa and Naples. That is very, very serious. If you are going to bed tonight in the areas around Punta Gorda, Charlotte Harbor, I want you guys to really be on alert and be overlooking your hurricane plans just in case this storm comes to you. As you can see, Hurricane Charley 2004, now this was a bit different setup. Charley was moving very quickly. Charley was August 12th, August 13th, so it's a different time of year, it's a different setup. But again, it was influenced by a trough and it turned, and we thought it was going to head more towards Tampa, St. Petersburg a little later on, and it turned and it made landfall earlier in areas of Charlotte Harbor. And that caught a lot of people off guard, to say nothing of the intensity. It was supposed to be a Category 2 or 3. It became a strong Category 4, and that was the strongest hurricane to hit the United States since Andrew back in 1992. Here's the wind shear map. Again, it's starting to feel some wind shear, but it's moving in the same direction. So in other words, if the shear is coming down like this, and then the hurricane's moving north-northeast, it could actually be influenced by the shear, almost like a skater when she pulls her arms in and kind of spins. I don't know about those analogies, I'm losing it. It's been a long time tracking this thing today, but you're getting my drift, right? If they move with the trough, they don't get sheared as much, and that could be very, very favorable for future development. Now, we're thinking that this thing is going to become a Category 4 hurricane, and when we look at our chart here, a Category 4 hurricane is capable of devastating damage. Devastating to catastrophic damage. So the Hurricane Center now thinks this thing won't be weakening like we were talking about yesterday, and it's going to come ashore possibly as a major hurricane. A Category 3 strike on the west coast of Florida. Very, very serious indeed. Storm surge, I can't tell you guys enough. In areas of Tampa Bay, you guys are very susceptible to high water rises. Now, this map is going to change through time because we're expecting the hurricane track to shift back and forth. But if you are on the right side of that hurricane, where you have the onshore flow, you are going to have significant water rises. Significant. Maybe on the order of 6, 10, 15 feet, very possible. Also, it depends on how strong it is. If it's a Category 2 hurricane, the surge will be bad. But if it's a Category 4 hurricane, the surge is going to be really, really bad. And the rainfall. Look at these rainfall totals from the European model. This is insane. This would be 25 inches plus over areas of Tampa, St. Pete. So it ain't just the waves, it ain't just the surge, it ain't just the wind, but it's also the waters. The pumps need to keep up. So we're going to have a lot of freshwater flooding and small creeks and streams. You know, down in Florida, you got a lot of wet, marshy estuaries and all that. These things are going to flood like crazy, and that's why we have such a dangerous flood risk now across a lot of Florida, not just in Southwest. Remember, this thing's already sprawling, and it's going to cause a lot of problems. Here's another look at the water vapor imagery, and boy, look at this trough. Look at that trough. This is a monster front that has moved through. We have cold dew points moving all the way to the Gulf Coast. It feels like fall in Alabama. So you guys have this trough moving through, and it has picked up our hurricane. Look at the interaction between the hurricane and the front. You could tell it's getting influenced by it. Now, what we were thinking earlier was that the trough was going to miss it, so it was going to kind of tug on Ian and drag him slowly along the Florida coast. Now, it's looking more likely that it might be influenced to move quicker to the east and make a landfall in southwest Florida as a stronger storm with less time over the Gulf to suck in dry air and weaken. However, it's still going to have a slowdown, and that's going to prolong any rain impacts. So again, we're dealing with a very, very serious storm here, and I just wanted to tell you guys all this data as it comes in. I'm going to try and keep you updated with these videos as quickly and as urgently as I can. Sometimes it'll be an on-camera, sometimes an off-camera. Either way, as time goes on, we're going to be able to zero in who exactly will be impacted by this hurricane. Now, suffice it to say, it's going to be a major hurricane for southwest Florida, and somebody's going to get slammed. There it is as we leave it this Monday night rather, going into Tuesday, becoming a major hurricane about to impact western Cuba with devastating winds, and then on track for the Gulf of Mexico and the west coast of Florida. I'm Mike Naso with continuing coverage of Hurricane Ian. Stay tuned, I'll talk to you guys next time with much further updates as we watch hurricane season 2022 roll on with a major hurricane expected to hit southwest Florida midweek.